Alright, this is part 5 of the basic lab setup of Alex's Introduction to Windows 2012. I'm Alex McDermott, and we're going to talk about routing and remote access. So, you have a subnet. It's got a DHCP scope. You set a default gateway. What does that do? Well, the gateway is typically pointed to a device called a router, which could be anything from a little Linksys Netgear given to you by your ISP switch with wireless that connects whatever your internal network scheme is, 192.168.1. something, to a publicly available IP from your ISP. If you had a whole bunch of subnets, you would have devices that say in the IPv4 space, if I want to go to subnet X, I'm going to send the packet to this other IP address using some interface. And it's really beyond the introduction to go to that, and it's quite frankly kind of beyond Windows. But you need to know that network address translation exists. You need to know that you can create static routes for where to send things. The router information protocol, open shortest path first, and BGRP, which is completely out of scope. And routing and remote access supports VPNs, both traditional and direct access. And direct access, if you can get it running, is pretty cool, because direct access allows you to functionally always have your clients on the network, on your office network, which means that if you need to patch some sales guy's computer and he's always out of the office, then when he turns on his computer and it connects to the internet, it's connected to your office, and if you have some patching tools, it will work. If you've got them set to use WSUS, that will work. So this is the machine that we created using WDS a while back, and I'm going to modify WDS over here to require administrative approval, which we didn't have before. So in this pending devices, there should be whatever starts up. And I've actually cheated and created this skeleton here for FS13. And let's crank this puppy on. And F12 for network boot. And it says it's contacting the server. If we go back to DC11 and refresh this, there's a request. Let's right say it there, name and approve. Device name is going to be FS1. And servers, let's see if we can do that. Nope, nope. Boot image, that's the only one I got. There is no referral server, there is no unattended file. I'm going to skip that, and it's approved. So let's see what's going on over here. It's already started going. I didn't have to go in and press any buttons to start with. No, that's the boot whim. So that'll go in the background. I just wanted to show you that that was there, and if you do the multicast transmissions, you can set these up from the install images and require to have a certain number of machines on at a time. So rather than broadcasting a couple of gig of data across the network for each server you're setting up or for each client you're setting up, you could set up like 5 or 10 and approve them. And when you get to the correct threshold level, they'll all run using multicast, so it gets broadcast across the network once. If you've got other than a super duper network, you might want to pay attention to that. If you've isolated this segment out to where all your machines are, not really a big deal. So let's go over to NAT1, which I believe needs to have VMware tools installed. While we're at this, we can run the Active Directory Administrative Center. And let's see what this machine called NAT1 is called before it comes up. I think that administrator 1 is probably this NAT computer. Yep. So that's one of the advantages of setting WDS to run itself. I'm going to pause this while I rename this computer and install VMware tools. And I'll be back in a moment. Hey, we're back, and this is just for a second. The FS13 server is installing, and the NAT server is rebooting. You can see over here that my disk latency has gone up significantly from having no requirements. And as this goes up, everything slows down. So just be aware of that. Storage systems matter, especially when you get to Hyper-V, and you need something that can do enough input-output operations per second. All right, we're back here on the NAT1 machine, and I'm going to change the name because I didn't pay attention when I was, well, I paid attention, but since this was set up to go with the administrator name, it's going to be changed to NAT1 as opposed to administrator 1. And quite frankly, when I was doing the WDS for FS13, I typoed the name and left out the 3, so I'm going to have to rename that one as well. So this is going to say, do you want to restart the machine? I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm saying no is right now this image only has one NIC card, which isn't going to do very well if I need to bridge my corporate network with my ISP supplied connectivity devices. So I'm going to shut down this machine by going to the bottom right corner and hitting Settings, Power, Shut Down. And this is planned hardware maintenance. Continue. So this puppy's going down. While it's going down, I'm going to prep this guy to get a OS, and I'm going to go away to lunch while it's installing. So this is sitting there and it's waiting to be approved by the administrator, which is me. But because this is so dreadfully slow due to my drive limitations, or my storage system limitations, I'm just going to start this and get it running. And we'll go look back at that before we hit lunch. So here's my NAT server. So somewhere if I right click, there's a properties or edit settings. And I'm going to add an Ethernet adapter. You get some choices here. You get some choices in Microsoft. The legacy adapter is the one that's good for PXE installing. And you can see here it's completed the reconfiguration. Do I have that window open? Yes, I do. So this should go relatively quickly. I'm going to pause for a second because you're tired of watching these. Alright, we're back. This machine is up. It hasn't been up for long enough to really get all the services running, or at least as of the last refresh it hadn't. Oh, yep, that's it. I think the refresh by default is every 10 minutes. You can configure that. And if you look over here, you'll see that this machine was down at this time, and it really took about 4 minutes for me to get up and into it. And that's with these two machines here and here running, and these two are just sitting around waiting for approval to do PXE boot. So let's go here, and I'm going to add a roll-in feature. Next, roll this machine. I'm going to hope that I came in. Now, this does remote access and it also does routing. But they're not really expecting you to use routing because there are specialized processors for dealing with IP packet traffic transfer. And aside from Vinyata, I'm not aware of anyone who's really dealing with it. And you'll note that this installs the group policy management, because if you're going to create a group policy for for machines to use direct access, you're going to need it. So that's just a reminder. It says direct access gives users the experience of being seamlessly connected to the corporate networks anytime they have internet access. And this is a wonderful thing, not because they have access to the corporate network, which is great for line of business and probably profitable, and we'll get it in at some point, but it means that you can make sure that mobile users stay up to date with security and system health policies. And that is the great feature of this thing. And also, I'm installing routing because I need NAT. I need to get out to the internet. And it's also going to install all of these things because you need the web server to go with remote access and logging and security and domain restrictions for IP address and management tools for IIS. So I'm going to install this, and this is probably going to take a few minutes. So I'm going to pause the video, and if you're doing this, you might want to pause the video and come back when you're installed. Alright, I'm back because my server has finished installing the roles requested, which is routing and remote access. And I've actually started these 3 machines here, and I've got them all starting to deploy. And down here you can see that I'm suspending them, which means I'm sort of hitting the pause button on them. And you can see over here that my disk's usage has gone up through the roof. Now this is a simple 1 drive. This is where having multiple drives would help, or setting up a storage pool. So I don't have it, so I'm here. I'm going to go back to the Add Roles and Features wizard, and I've got this notification saying it was successfully installed, and I've got to do post-deployment. So I'm going to cheat because the post-deployment is not fun for me because I don't have IPv6 configured properly, and I certainly don't have IPv6 from my service provider, which is shameful for me. I'm going to pause while this comes up because you can see this isn't really doing anything. And over here, I've got a lot of disk usage, and it's just not overly happy. I still got a lot of memory on the machine. In fact, if we go over to the summary, you can see I'm not using much of my memory, despite the fact that I've given out a whole lot. So I've got 32 gigs. I'm using 18. And I'm not even using that, but I've frozen this 12 gig, really, by pausing those machines, and that's not really usable now. So is this thing finished suspending? Yes, it is. Did I somehow not hit the post-deployment configuration for direct access? Got me. Let's refresh. And punch up remote access. Remote access management is starting, I guess. Time to do the Control-Alt insert, and let's look at Task Manager for Windows Server 2012. I've got 2 things up and running, and you can see right now I've got pretty high CPU usage. There's a SQL server that's been installed with remote access, and direct access, and I'm not using much memory, but I am maxed out on CPU. So I might want to think about giving this machine more if it weren't for the fact that really it's not going to need it that much once the whole thing's done. You can see it's identifying the underlying processor, and it looks like my CPU just died down. So where is my remote access console? Here we go. Nope. Tasks. Nope. Refresh. Ah, hidden in the background. Nice. So I'm not going to deploy direct access because I'm not properly configured for it. In 2008, you needed 2 copies of the two sequential IP addresses. You no longer need that. I'm setting this up as just NAT, and the public interface is the 192 network because the 10 network is our internal one. So this is going to configure this for us. And we're now up and running. And if you look under IPv4, there's NAT, and it says you've got internal, Ethernet, and Ethernet. So at this point, if we go to our domain controller, and say Start, Internet Explorer. Yeah, use the recommended settings. And let's say bing.com. It's waiting for bing.com. And hey, what's going on? I should have that, right? Well, not really. Because let's get rid of that. My DHCP is not configured. Sorry, my DNS is not configured with a forwarder. Let's go DNS manager. While we're at it, let's make sure that I can get out to the world. 192.168.1.1. Is that running? No. Do I have an internet connection? Let's find out. So this guy worked properly. He can get out. But for some reason, he doesn't seem to be routing correctly. DNS proxy. Nope. You know what? Let's try that DNS proxy again. Let's say DNS. Forwarders. Edit 10.0.0.1. Is that going to work? Probably not. All right, so let's take a look at DNS here. And let's go over here and make sure that that's what we think it is. So lab internal 10.0.0.20. This machine came up not on the IP address we think it did. So let's go back to Server Manager here and give it the right address. This is why you write these things down. At least we know that that one's lab internal. So properties, IPv4, 10.0.0.1, 255.255.255.0, 10. No gateway. Preferred DNS server. 10.0.0.11. Okay. Okay. Back. PowerShell. So I just went through to the DNS server in DC11 and said, update this machine. You see I've got two addresses for this, the old one which hasn't gone away yet, and I've got the new one. So I just delete the old one. Now I've got the 10.10.1 address, and if I do this and say destination still not reachable, but I should at least be able to ping the NAT server, I think. So let's try 10.0.0.1. Nah, we're not pinging. So let's go here, go to properties again, and say monitoring. This server is up and running, but I'm not passing any information to other servers. The recursive query fails. So I want to run over here and verify ping 192.168.1.1. That's not correct. Okay, this server's going to have to be rebooted. It's not happy. Probably I could disable and enable the adapter, but I don't have the patience for it. I'm guessing I get this backwards a lot. So I'm going to change this around. And let's see if we can ping. Nope. I'm bouncing this box and maybe removing and reinstalling the feature. So apparently I got my IP adapters backwards, which probably explains why I couldn't ping before. So I've got the network connections, lab.internal is doing wonderfully by DHCP, and Ethernet 2, which should be DHCP, was incorrectly configured. See what happens when you try to hurry. It's often better to make a plan beforehand than to, quite frankly, screw it up. So let's try this. Oops, I didn't want that. PowerShell. This guy's got an address of 1.4, gateway is 1.1, ping 192.168.1.1. Pretty clear I screwed that one up. So, Ethernet's internal, the other one's not. Remote access management. Let's go check DC11 and try doing a test again. It's now 10:05. So we're still failing. And the forwarder is 192.168.1.1. Let's ping 10.0.0.1. Not responding. It's a little worrying considering that I've just foobarred a bunch of items. So routing and remote access management, IPv4, NAT, and Ethernet 2 is probably the public interface. And Ethernet 1 is probably the private interface. And can we refresh this? No mappings. No mappings. No mappings. All right. Not gonna get working. All right. I can now talk to this device since we fixed the lovely interfaces. Boom, 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 properties, monitoring. Can we clear these? I'm going to kill the simple one, and that's now passing. So now if I say I get an answer for Bing.com. If I say I get some Akamai farm. Why does this matter? Do you need to go to the internet? Probably. And that gets us to Bing.com. What's wonderful about Bing.com? Not particularly much. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Task. No. Dashboard. Add other servers to manage. NAT. Find. Connect it. Okay. Do I really care? No. But you're supposed to be doing all this stuff remotely, so let's add a role and feature to DHCP 12. Before we do that, let's cancel that. I want to check the storage on DHCP 12. It's got an error. Let's check the disks. Then rescan the storage on 12. And I've still only got this 40 gig drive. And it's only got 20 gig free, 30 gig free. I'm gonna risk it. And what I'm going to risk is adding the Windows Software Update Services feature to DHCP 12. Windows Server Update Services. Clearly they've changed the name. And I'm going to use the Windows internal database and C:/updates WSUS -updates. So let's start the install, and I'm going to pause for relatively obvious reasons. All right, Windows Server Update Services has installed, including the services, the Windows internal database, .NET, role administration tools, and so forth. So we're going to say close that. And this is here. And it says we need configuration. It says it here, and it says it here. And we can say launch post-installation tasks. I'm a little curious as to how this is going to go, both because the thing's slow, and also because I don't have the tools installed for managing that on that server. And I'm signing out a NAT1 because that's now up and done. See, Server Manager here is still kind of hanging out and thinking about something. And I believe what it's really thinking about is the fact that it doesn't have installed on it the required tools. I'm going to go to Dashboard. I'm going to add a role and a feature just because I want to make sure I've got it. I'm going to DC11. I now have 3 servers in my pool. I'm installing the Remote Server Administration tool as soon as I can figure out where it is. Remember, when you look at these in PowerShell, these are all features. In fact, I'm going to show you that right now. Get-Windows feature. These are all the features installed. If they're not available, that probably means that you're going to have to mount part of a WIM file index or get SUS on working online so you can run against Microsoft or against your local SUS server to get the feature. And you'll see it's got the feature whether it's checked, and it's got the name of the feature. So if you wanted to install a feature or a role, you could say install-windows feature dash, update services. Which should probably do both of the underlying ones. Right now I'm looking for the Remote Server Administration tool for WSUS. WDS-admin pack. So WDS-admin pack. WDS-admin pack. Install-Windows feature. WDS-ADMINPACK. No change needed. Apparently, I do in fact have it. A little bit odd. I wanted the WSUS admin pack. Update services -RSAT. So you can see that this is now installing. And probably if I could have found it over here, yep, right there. So I'm a little blind. Windows automatic updating is not enabled. Okay, let's go here. Let's say refresh. So this thing says it's configured. I'm not really buying it. Connect to server. Server is DHCP 12. Great, looks like it worked. And now we've got to do the configuration wizard. No, not at this time. I'm going to synchronize from Microsoft Update. You can chain these, and you can use a proxy server if you need to with credentials to log on. A lot of people that I've seen as network admins aren't really happy and will tend to poke holes in the firewall for this, which is odd because I've seen them not do it for the equivalent of the virtual machine manager. I'm going to pause because this takes a while. Alright, we're back. I was beginning to get worried that I wasn't connecting, but quite frankly, I didn't get one of those nice dialog boxes saying I hadn't connected. This has connected. We're back to the initial configuration wizard for DHCP. I only need English. I could choose Ukrainian or Lithuanian or Hindi or Greek, but I only need English. So what products am I going to specify updates for? Do I want to do the Bing bar? Not so much in the office. People tend to want to choose what they want. BizTalk, don't have. Old stuff, don't have. I am going to do report viewer because you need that for viewing reports, and that's going to have to be installed on any machine that you want to check reports on. So Office, not for this demo. I did install this onto the local drive, and while in production you would want to have all of this stuff, for purposes of this lab with a relatively isolated kind of double netted network, it's okay. I don't need Windows 2000. I don't need Windows 7 language packs. I don't need the EU choice. I might want Windows Defender. Don't need RT, don't need 2003. That's almost end of life, and in a production environment, I would be surprised if anybody is completely away from 2003. There's always sort of one last thing. So I don't like Vista, so I'm going to take that off. I'm going to take off the XP 64-bit edition, but I might leave XP. My mom's computer is having an issue, and I don't think it's going to virtualize nicely. So what am I going to do? Updates. Update rollups, tools, service packs, feature packs, drivers. Yes, I want all of that shit. And I'm going to cross my fingers that it doesn't kill my drive. So I'm going to begin the initial synchronization, and then I'm going to go off for lunch. So these are things that you can do with SUS, which is you can create computer groups, servers, workstations, initial guinea pig group, secondary guinea pig group, venturous C-suite people who want to know if stuff is going to break first, and everybody else. And that'll probably go by every model of Windows you're running. So this guy's here. If we check the synchronizations, we'll see the first one completed and the second one's running. And it's 10% done. And that's only because it's probably connected, and it's now going to slow down like up. Before I go out to lunch, I'm also going to unpause these machines, and I want to see that they're actually doing something. So FS13's here. If this goes to, you know what, I'm going to close that window. I'm going to close this window, and I'm going to close that window and check the console there. I don't see the servers doing anything. There we go, 83%. HA14, console. $16. %. Not all the memory is being used, and each of these machines is configured with 4 gig of memory. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 machines, each of which has been given 4 gig of memory. And if you look on this one, this is the NAT server we were looking at before. If you check the granted, it's 4 gig, but what it's actually using is, looks like 3. And the active memory is nada. So let's see if this is doing anything. And maybe the TFTP server is not happy with them anymore. And quite frankly, I wouldn't blame it. It's probably not a good idea to pause these, but I'm going to look at this and decide whether I want to stop these installations and restart them entirely, or if I want to check and see if they need to be reactivated on the server, in which case I'll let you know whatever it was. Alright, I walked away for a few minutes and came back, and these servers do not seem to be moving at all. These were 3 servers that got started with TFTP earlier, and they just don't particularly seem to be doing much. So they've been running for about 5 minutes. The memory's going up? No. Yeah. But they don't seem to be actually starting. So I think these machines are going to, whoa. I'll give them another minute to see if they level off here. But these all claim they're using 4 gig of memory, if I read this right. And they're still increasing what they want. But the active memories, active memory is ahead of real memory. I'll give it another minute. No hurry. Alright, so I looked at these and I glanced at the memory usage. You would use perfmom or resource manager to do this. Alright, I just got distracted by a phone call. As I was saying, I looked at these to make the call of whether I should just restart the process or if I should wait and see if they completed. And what I came up with was these machines actually are processing. This one was at maybe 1%. This one I think was at 16. And this one was in the 80s. So it's now 90. Now, I just want to show you on this server what it's using. So there's a bar for the CPU readout, and this is like the thing you get from Task Manager, and ditto the memory. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 machines running. Each of them is allocated 4 gig of memory, and you can see that the memory usage says it's got this much allocated. On both Hyper-V and VMware, and I would be very surprised if not Zen, on pretty much any bare metal hypervisor, you should be able to do memory over provisioning. And if we look at the performance of the memory here, and what's active for all the machines is well under 24. This is about 15 gig. This is a little bit under. And 100% is somewhere up here. So this is probably, granted, is this bar. Everybody's gets 4 gig. And Currently, I'm not using any swap file. Nothing is being pushed out of memory by ballooning techniques, which sort of push stuff down to page files. Microsoft, if you use the tools that they have, the experience is done by the Microsoft page file because they decided that they shouldn't second guess what's important and what's not. Some of the vendors have the ballooning that they just sort of say, hey, I'm sticking a bunch of stuff in memory. Take out the oldest stuff you have, and what they put in doesn't matter. So these are all installing, and if you see, the memory is not really in use, and the networks, probably that's the SUS download. Storage adapter, I'm probably running latency on my disk because I've got all these things trying to run. And the disk, you'll also see peaked up here as everything started up, and then it's over here, and they're all trying to do the installation and configuration. And the CPU, that's my usage. This is about when I powered on those 3 boxes, and now they're doing the install. It's going to be slower. So we'll do one small bit more on SUS configuration, which is configuring the clients to run it, after I get back from lunch. So see you later. Bye. Alright, since I've never done one of these screen captures before, I'm going to have to remember where I was because I haven't learned to stitch scenes together to make improved videos yet. I'm sure it's pretty simple, not really high on my agenda. If I look at the screen here, it says I've done the post-deployment configuration task for Windows Server Update Services, and that it was completed successfully. If I right-click on these, nothing's really happening. Either the whole thing's frozen, or it thinks it's done. So if we go to our SUS server and run the console, what's going on here? Looks like we're still synchronizing, which is a little bit too bad. But we're going to have to do a group policy for this, and we'll get to that when we get the group policies section. I'm relatively confident that the SUS server will finish synchronizing. Yeah, 93. So we're going to have to talk about group policies. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for the IIS administrator. And I'm betting that's the old way to do it. New way, sidebar. So DHCP12 has got a website because it's running software update services, or server update services. Sorry about that. And I don't seem to have the IIS tools installed on this machine, which is a shame. So let's go local server, dashboard, add role and feature, next, role-based. Oh, I want to do it on this one. I want the remote server tools for IIS. Application server. That's remote management for other people to use IIS on this machine. Now they come up underneath again. All right, the synchronization succeeded. I'll go back to look at the IIS in a minute. I'm sure it's here somewhere. And we're looking for automatic approvals. If an update is a critical update, security update, approve it for all computers. Now, we already went through and said what we were going to run. And remember to run the rule. And it will say that it's approved a bunch of stuff. Now, I'm going to go over to Bing and say server 2012 WSUS port group policy. So I'm not positive because I haven't checked. But I suspect that not all clients know to connect to WSUS on the port that's used in the version on 2012, where they changed, whoa, that's a lot of updates, where they changed, okay, the port that's used And you'll see it says 0 of 0 computers shown. Nobody's checked into this machine. I've had it running. I haven't had the updates, but I've had it running. So first thing I'm going to do is go back to Server Manager. And I'm going to go to Active Directory, Directory Services, right-click, and say Active Directory Administrative Center. I have a number of servers. I do, in fact, want to rename a bunch of them. So I've got 3 here. This one I want to rename FS13, I think. 12 is a DHCP server, and that's the NAT server. And I got computers here. Domain admins 1, domain admins 2. These 2. Good grief. Need to go to servers. And we're going to create a group policy that allows all of these machines to check in with the WSUS server. And that's going to be it for the intro to the lab. The next section will probably be Hyper-V, just because if people are doing this on Hyper-V, they need to be able to know how to do this on Hyper-V. So I believe I just told the Group Policy Management Console to come up, and of course it's hidden behind something because that's useful. Now, there are a number of tools in here which are very useful. And I'm going to quit this video and start it again to discuss this, because really you need to know it and it's its own subject.